Welcome to my weekly live chat. If you're just joining the channel, my name's Aaron Apter. I'm a professional musician here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I do a weekly live chat where I simply talk about all the things that are going on in the music world, what I'm doing, what it's like to live and work here in Nashville, Tennessee as a professional musician. And I just want to make sure this thing is rolling. And it looks like, yeah, we are live. So we should be up and rolling right now. So I have a little bit of a problem with the front-facing camera, so I'm using the rear-facing camera today to just, get things up and rolling. So let me see if I can get the screen, and there we go. All right. So, I really didn't promote this week. I'm just freaking tired, and I don't even know if anybody's watching right now, and I'm probably going to be speaking into the void. But yeah, I wanted to document some of the realness of being a musician and what it's like to do this kind of work. So today I am 100% exhausted. I've been under the weather this week. I had to take some time off. But I played this weekend, and I've just been feeling ground down and burnt out. And I was just going to ghost on my live chat today. But I really, part of why I do this, my channel, and why I really like to connect with people is like I like to show the process and how it can be really challenging, and then some days you just don't feel like doing it, and the battles we fight. So I'm just exhausted right now. I'm doing a lot of work, playing. I got a little bit sick, but played like 4 or 5 gigs in the past couple days, and I'm just beat down. And I haven't been live streaming them as much, just because of the cost involved with that, and just the financial cost, but also the time and energy cost has really been sapping me. And I've just kind of been leaving my phone away from me, not really responding to too many social media messages right now. It's just because I need some time to just recharge my batteries, and rather just maybe time to chill out. I think if you think like building something on your own, like a career, being an entrepreneur, being a self-employed musician, I would say it's very much like think about exercising. You can't go hard every day, because if you go hard every day, you're going to burn out and you're going to get injured. And so you need time to recover, recharge, rebuild. And yeah, that's where I've been feeling at the past week or two. I just need a vacation. And I don't want to be one of those people who complains without offering solutions or just says the world's against them. I'm simply acknowledging that it's kind of like I'm in like mile 18 of a marathon right now, where kind of in the middle of busy season. I've gotten a lot of work this year, made a lot of progress, and I don't want to power through and just like ignore my health and my rest. But I also don't like, sometimes things kind of get hard and challenging and difficult. And so this year, I've been working on a lot of life things, a lot of career things, a lot of changes, ups and downs. And yeah, right now there is nothing bad has really happened. I'm simply just exhausted and needing time to recharge. And I think also when doing this, doing YouTube, doing anything on Instagram, kind of like sharing your journey, I really want to share that with people, but I also want to like put up some boundaries, in the sense that just having quiet time and having time to reflect and not always be engaged online and rather be engaged in the real world. And I'm simply vocalizing my process right now and what I'm going through. And I always want to be clear about this. I don't want to vocalize this process and what I'm going through to elicit sympathy or to feel bad for myself, but rather to give other people permission to go through this process and sometimes like feel a struggle. Where am I at? What do I value? Am I spending too much time on this and not enough time on that? Am I being too hard on myself? Do I need to be doing more? These are all things that I think many of us deal with, especially when we're so engaged with social media. And so as a musician, like right now, I'm balancing just working all the time. I love playing, but like, should I need to be practicing more, taking less gigs? Because sometimes you play so many gigs that you never have time to develop your craft. Should I be focusing more on networking? Do I need to be kinder with myself and be more patient? Because this sense of urgency sometimes can drive us to like some tough places. Yeah, so and I might keep this short here today because I just need some time to rest. I'm also pretty sure I'm battling a staph infection that I'm going to need to go get treated, which is kind of and yeah, maybe I just want to take a nap. But I want to answer a few questions, but I really just wanted to show up and say like, and today, sometimes Sundays are really hard for me to do these live chats. And I'm not sure if people watch or pay that much attention, and that's not so much my concern. But if they do, I really hope to paint an accurate picture of what this is like. And I know my friend Brad's on here right now. Hey, Brad. So for example, my friends Brad and Joe came out to visit me a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to see them, but then also like I felt like a sense of panic because like I'm like, oh, I am these, I have to do this, and I wouldn't say trapped, but yeah, I just have to be really present with people and not like tuning out. And it ended up being really good, and I really loved seeing them. They're great buds of mine. But sometimes like putting yourself into that uncomfortable spots can lead to a lot of growth. So hey Joel, thanks for joining. I want to look at some chats. Uh, so we have Dan. Dan says, I've been trying to do more YouTube videos in the day-to-day life of being a small-town musician, and just the last 2 weeks have worn me out. I sat on my couch Friday night and just crashed. Yeah, we see. I can relate to your experience, and I really find those videos interesting of the day-to-day life, and I'm like, oh man, I could do that, and this would be great, and I have all these great ideas, and you can have great ideas, and then you find that great ideas. A lot of people have great ideas. The execution part, that's the next step, and sometimes that can be daunting or exhausting. And so if you're doing something like that, trying new things, be patient with yourself. Like when I started doing YouTube, I just said, I'm going to do this for a year and not have any expectations and just see what happens. And I'm entering my second year right now, and it's kind of still very much the same thing. I'm getting a little bit better at grasp on things, but it's really a process. And I think making YouTube videos is like making songs. Like, so lately I've been writing a song a day. I write a song and then it's done that day. Of course it could be better, but I'm learning how to like, okay, I need to work to do this and finish a task and then move on. It can always be better, but if you constantly iterate, that repetition really pays off. So Joel's on an epic road trip with his kids. I nominate Joel for Father of the Year. And he just said, I got back yesterday to Arizona. He like literally drove across country. And yeah, I've saying that breaks can be invigorating. Like wondering if I think really growth in any capacity, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, there's seasons of it. And think about it like planting crops. You have to plant, you have to tend to the crops, and you have to harvest, and then you have to let the soil replenish. And sometimes we all need that downtime. And I've been really trying to work smarter and harder, if that makes sense. I've been trying to figure out, okay, what's the way I can optimize my time and my energy, and what should I be investing in? Should I be investing into something that may not pay a lot right now, but pay off more down the line? Do I need to focus more on getting things, having things just keep moving? Yeah, it's a tricky question. We all have a different formula we're trying to follow, and then my formula may not work for somebody else because we all have different variables to contend with. So I want to know, does anybody have any questions? Can I answer anybody's? If anybody wants to hear some thoughts, have some questions about what it's like working in Nashville, working as a musician. Hey, Uli, great to hear from you. Remind me again where you're from, and you're a musician as well, and I know that you do video editing as well. Yeah, and so yeah, played a few gigs this weekend. Played a couple yesterday, and been trying to fool around with a new audio and video setup, but that's another thing I have to really be patient with. So like, I showed up with a new streaming setup. It didn't work, so I need to invest a little bit more money into that. And that all takes money and time and energy. So Stoney says, so what are some of the clubs that run writers' rounds around here? Man, that's a great question. So there's so many writers' rounds here. Nashville is a musician town, but it's also really unique in the sense that it's a songwriter's town. And the songwriter is treated with the same respect and deference as the musician. And when you're talking about writers' rounds, it's very much like being a musician. It's all about, like, you can have great songs, but you need to like network, and you need to find a way to like get on those stages or make friends with those people, and you need to find a way to help promote if you're on a writer's round, or just like go to these writer's rounds and support people. So there's like, there's always the Bluebird here, which is big. That's a big name thing here. But like literally, I strongly suggest just like coming here and figuring things out and meeting people. And I'm sorry not to like give you any specific names or do this, but like I would say my best bet is to work on developing relationships. And even if you're not in town, you can still develop relationships. It's a little bit more challenging. But if you watch my live stream from last Sunday where I talked with my friend Taylor, so she visited Nashville several months ago. I didn't even get a chance to meet her, but she posted on the Nashville Drummers page. It's like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Does anyone have any ideas what to do? She really laid down some groundwork ahead of time. She visited for a few days, and she kept in contact with people through Instagram, through email, Messenger, whatever. And she was in town last week visiting again, and like I was gonna have her sit in on one of my gigs, but that gig got canceled, and I felt bad because I really wanted to help her. I'm like, why don't you come on my live stream and we'll talk about it, and I'll answer some questions that maybe could help you and help other people. And if she would have I wouldn't have done that with her if she would have just messaged me randomly, and that was that. She and I chatted many times about playing music, and just building a relationship. I think, again, that's the one key thing I really want to stress. Regardless if you want to be a player, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a producer, if you want to be an engineer, relationships are so key. And finding a way to, if there's somebody I want to work with or I want to meet, what can I offer to them? How can I make myself of value and of service to them? But yeah, good question, Stoney. Curious if anybody else has questions, thoughts, concerns, comments, feedback. I also have a couple of videos which I'm editing right now. I got about 5 that are in the middle of being edited that I need to post up. So Nick says, how long did it take you to make the jump into playing full time? Was that the point at which you had what was the point at which you had enough opportunity to do so? So again, Nick, that's a really good question. And I think everybody's going to have a different experience with that. So when I lived in Chicago, give you the real quick story. I made a living full time as a musician, and that was my full time career. Uh, and I got this is not hyperbole. I got ran over by a car, got seriously injured. That ended my musical career, and I really didn't play for almost a decade. I started playing full time in Nashville in 2023. I had been in Nashville for about a year, kicking around with music, just doing things here and there. I wasn't making nearly enough as I should to go full time. And for me, I kind of just like jumped into the deep end, and I said, "All right, I got to find a way to make this happen." And for me, sometimes that's the way I operate best when I'm like backed into a corner and I have to make it happen. Some people like to have safety and security, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some people operate better in those circumstances. Uh, but move it like I in March of 2023, I knew that I could play Broadway. I knew that I could go out and do touring work. I kind of got my confidence back uh, because I hadn't played for years, and I spent like a good year or so listening to as much music as possible, meeting as many people as possible. I wasn't ready financially, musically, emotionally to make that jump full time, but I kind of threw myself in the deep end and kind of tried to find a way to swim. Uh, and some people work really well in that manner, and some people that's not the best thing for them. Uh, but the last thing I'll say is like, I actually was in therapy because I wasn't sure. I was working another career that wasn't music, and that career was a little bit better paying, and I invested a lot of time and energy into building that, and I was just unhappy doing that. And I figured after going to see a counselor for a while, I was like, oh, I'm much happier playing music. And I'm the kind of person that just is really motivated by things that I love doing. And yeah, that's what I did. Hey Nelly, how are you doing? And Nelly says she's like that blue stuff. Yeah, I love that stuff too. Uh, Regular basis, I don't know. It's like I play all over town. I'm going out of town next week. So I played there. Like I don't have a regular reoccurring gig yet, but I play there frequently. I play that style of music. Uh, So Dan says, I was watched a live stream from Tootsie's yesterday and it looked like they were just letting anyone jump up and play. Do you know if it was an audition type? Yeah, that's so Saturdays, 2 to 6, Tootsie's does their audition for their honky tonk school. And they just really give anybody a chance to get up there and play who's in Nashville looking to play full time. And you get on the Tootsie circuit. And I've never really worked on the Tootsie circuit because it's not really my thing. I always say there's multiple roads you can take in Nashville, even multiple roads on Broadway. All of them have, pluses and minuses. And for me, the minuses for the Tootsies it wasn't for me. But yeah, they do have that thing. I've done it before, and it's an interesting experience. So, load on basis. I'm a bassist with their commonalities, issues, play more gigs, practice less, many gigs. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, low down bass. Thank you so much. Hey Mick, I really try to make my content about music, like being a musician, not just being a drummer. And I also don't do a lot of stuff about technical aspects of music or like gear reviews. I might do another channel for that kind of stuff, maybe in the future, because I really like that. But really what I'm trying to do is, where's there a big gap on YouTube in terms of our knowledge and communication? And lots of people are like showing off these like cool licks and ways to play. And those are all very helpful. And gear reviews, they're really helpful. I love them as well. I just don't want, there's so many people doing that. I don't feel the need to. I would rather talk about the things that not a lot of people talk about, which is, for me, starting over. For somebody else, it's simply starting. Just talking about how this stuff it's not for the faint of heart, but it can be really rewarding. So Uli's a bedroom guitarist. So you haven't gigged in a while. Yeah. It's if you play in your bedroom, if you play on a stage, it doesn't make you better or worse. Um, doesn't make you more or less serious. Just putting that out there. And I used to like kind of do qualifiers for everything I had, and saying, well, I'm not like, just why do we need to? And I'm not suggesting you're implying anything, Uli. Uh, so, but yeah, if you play in your bedroom, that's great. If you play in an arena, uh, yeah, whatever makes you happy. Tyler Shep says, can you react to Sacrifice Me by Unprocessed? I'm gonna be honest with you, Tyler. I have no idea what you're talking about. If you want to provide some clarity on that one, feel free to let me know. But I'm not sure what exactly you're asking there. Yeah, and I'm just again, another thing, Uli, I wanted to respond. Like, you're talking about like vlogs, production, video, like music. There's so many things in music that you can do. It's not just playing. It's not just like, there are so many opportunities, and people say that music business is hard and that there's no money in it and that it's just like it's feast or famine. There's so many different aspects of music, and there's so many different avenues you can explore, and there's so many opportunities. They just go in a different way, and you don't have to put it all on one thing. Uh, yeah, nothing to see says playing in the bedroom doesn't discredit you at all, because there's lots of people playing in clubs that aren't that great. And I 100% agree. Also, one thing I've really learned about my playing, being on both sides of it, a lot of times I would go out and see people play. I'm like, I could do that. I'm better than that person. But I really don't know what they're going through on that stage, if they even know the songs, if their monitors are working, what their other capabilities are. Sometimes you get thrown into a weird situation. So I'm sure there's people who've seen my gigs and they're like, that drummer's not very good, because I do a last second call fill in, and someone plays a song that I say, no, I don't know that, I don't want to play it, but they go into playing it anyways, even, and I've never heard it before. Again, but it's like, I don't need to make excuses. You need to show up and do the work. But just because you're on stage doesn't mean you're good. Just because you're in your bedroom doesn't mean you're bad. But also, getting on that stage, there is a skill to that, both in terms of musical and in terms of networking. You need to gain the trust of people. You need to do the networking, have the stuff out there to get up there on that stage. And so Tyler, yeah, I don't, I don't do a lot of reaction videos. I've reacted to like events in the music business. I've reacted to people. Usually, I just react to other people's opinions, saying, "Well, okay, like if you're going to be up here talking ill about somebody, are you going to give them? Are you offering them support? Are you offering solutions, or do you just feel like you need to just talk badly about somebody?" Or if you like, sometimes people like do these reaction videos, you're like, whoa, I can't believe that. And I'm not knocking that, but it's not really my wheelhouse. So, Lowdown Bass is saying, yeah, and also the kitten's great. I love my little kitten. He's taking a nap right now. Yeah, he's still very popular on Instagram. I haven't had a lot of time to do any of his videos lately, but that's another story. So Lowdown Bass saying a gig last night at a microbrewery on top of a 20-foot shipping container stage. Man, yeah, that sounds wildly interesting, and I've been there before as well. Yeah, yeah, I've seen all those trigger systems, and I like using them, and I don't get too far into those technical things, but eventually, like I would like to do, I'm looking at doing another channel next year in conjunction with this. So I have a couple of things and with a couple other partners in the works, but we'll talk about that later. So can you name some of the must-have for drummers on a Broadway gig? Uh, Dan, so that's a great question. Now I would just like name a lot of the must-haves for musicians in general on Broadway. And so if you need to know, I would say everyone always needs to have, I would say like having an iPad, really helpful. You're going to want to have your charts on there, and you're going to want to like know a crap ton of songs. Really, like I would say like 2,000 at least. And that's not me being hyperbolic. It's like you really need to know a lot of them. And let me just yeah. So I have actually if you want all those charts, I just gave you a link in the that if you wanted to like buy those charts. I have I think about 4,000 charts I keep on my iPad. I would say every musician needs to have a pair of in-ear monitors, not necessarily the pack, but a pair of in-ear monitors. A lot of clubs use those versus wedges, and sometimes if you show up and you don't have them, you can be SOL. Now, if you're a drummer, always have sticks, snare, kick pedal, cymbals, even a throne. If you're a guitarist, obviously you want to have a guitar, strap, capo, chords, pedal board. And some of these places go direct, so you might want to have like one of these amp modelers, a Line 6. Yeah, quick Adam prices. I'm not even sure I've heard 2,000 songs. Yeah, that's fair. But so if you're playing on Broadway in Nashville, you are essentially required to be a human jukebox. And I've done a lot of videos on the different ways to approach going on there. Yeah, but I would say having an iPad, but that way also like so if you have like I keep a list of like the audio files of songs. I keep them locally, so if I need to listen to a song, that's great. And yeah, so I would also let's see what else would you. I like having a cart to wheel all my stuff, but again, not everybody carries all those things. But if you're a guitarist, a bassist, vocalist, yeah, having a pair of in-ear monitors, having a phone clip, either a phone clip or a clip for your iPad that you can attach to a microphone stand, it's going to be super important because a lot of times also people are sending requests to you via Venmo. Sometimes there's a group chat with the other musicians on the stage, so you can kind of communicate. It's a little bit of a different beast. And yeah, honky tonk school is so. I don't know enough about honky tonk school, but Azrael was saying that it's a feeder for a scam. So I don't want to comment on things I haven't had a lot of experience directly with. But I will say this. When you're playing on Broadway, it's going to be very much like you're playing anywhere else in the world. And there's unique situations for everything. But there's always going to be unfair situations where you're being taken advantage of. Does that make it right? No. Can you stop yourself from being taken advantage of by saying, I'm not going to do this? Yes. Does that mean you are bad and don't care about music? Absolutely not. I was really like, I'm not going to participate in any of this scam BS when I was coming up through the ranks when I was younger. And I thought that was in my best interest. And I'm not saying this for anybody else, just my own personal experience. I thought it was in my best interest to essentially say, no, I'm not going to pay for $20. And having spent time away from the music industry and then getting back into it and having really low self-esteem and not sure if I could play anymore, I ended up saying yes to all these $20 gigs, even though I knew it wasn't worth my time or energy or money, but I just wanted to get my feet wet and started playing again. So here's where the real learning is that I did a ton of these gigs. Many of them led to nothing else. But some of these gigs that I wouldn't have taken when I was younger, but I took when I was older, I was getting back into the music. it helped introduce me to people. It helped build my profile online and in the community. Uh, and it started building a name for myself in person as opposed to online and, through Instagram. And I gained a lot of people's trust that way. I gained a lot of experience. Um, and that's what I needed at the time. So there's always going to be some kind of, you have to figure out what kind of trade-off are you going to want to do. So I took a lot of these gigs that were quote unquote scam, but I knew that, okay, how can I leverage something else aside from money? Can I use this to shoot some footage? Can I use this to just make it look like I'm busy so other musicians come out and see me play? Am I doing this just to learn the material? And I think both Honky Tonk School and the other honky tonks on Broadway, they have pluses and minuses. Like if you play the main stage on Kid Rock's on a Friday or Saturday night, you're going to be making bank. But you have to go through a lot to get there. And there's not a lot of people that get there, and not a lot of people that are willing to pay the price to get there. And that's not right or wrong. That's just is what it is. I think as we progress in the music industry, as you go up the ladder, I was telling a friend yesterday that I can go out on the road and play in front of 10,000 people and make less money doing that than I play at a honky tonk and getting with 50 people if it's the right day. And that's the honest truth. Yeah. And the crane carts, yeah, expensive, absolutely worth it. Yeah, I would agree. Let's see what other, let me open up this chat whether, let's see what other questions we have. Yeah, so the guy on YouTube who does live streams for Honky Tonk School shows you the live portion of, so Z Pierre, yeah, he does that. Z Pierre, yeah, Z Pierre's a cool dude. He's out there and everyone loves him. Everyone knows him. He's out there live streaming every day. I think he's from Haiti. This guy hustles nonstop. He's always out and doing these things. I don't know if Z Pierre is kind of giving people kind of a curated version of what goes on in Honky Tonk School. Because I've heard a lot of things about behind the scenes that I can't verify through what my own experience. But I've heard from enough people and there's been enough smoke around that area where I decide, okay, that's not something for me. That's not something I'm necessarily interested in. And again, everyone has to make their own choices on that. So Nothing to See says, what's the stage volume like playing in Nashville? Are the guitars, bass going DR, or do they have mics on them, or just running the amp? Sorry if I sound like an idiot, but no, that's why I'm here. Everyone has these questions. And sometimes when you ask this and someone who's been playing on Broadway, they'll act like it's a dumb question, but everyone had to figure it out somehow and didn't know. So no, there's no dumb questions. So stage volume that's a really good question. Stage volume depends on the time of day, depends on the club, depends on the style of music, depends on the players. So you can be playing at a honky tonk that has like 30, 40 people, and it can be all ears and no amps whatsoever, everybody going direct. There's even some clubs that do the electronic drums here, which I'm not a fan of. There are some bigger stages where they are going to mic the amps and everyone's going to have an amp. And things are going to be mic'd. There's going to be time where like it's going to get super loud, and there's going to be times during the day when you're like required to play super soft. And so being able to gauge that and know when to do that is really important. I know there are certain snare drums I'll bring to certain gigs that I won't play on other gigs because I'm not going to play the certain brass snare drum on kind of more of like a softer chill gig because it's really cutting. The same breath, I'm not going to take a more sensitive jazz snare on a rock gig because I'm going to have to hammer that and it's just not going to sound that great. Yeah, and Dan, thanks for buying those charts. Yeah, the electronic drums versus acoustic drums, that's always I don't like electronic drums. If I'm on a gig and they are there, I just have to accept it. Um, and complaining about it doesn't do anything. But I would say it's very much when I play electronic drums, I just think stomp and clap, and I really simplify things. I don't like electronic drums at all. Uh, so Lowdown Bass says, how I learned for tunes for Nashville. I play along live streams via audio interface and bass plugs. I do a lot more than I thought. Yeah, so that's a great way. That's like training wheels. I think that's great. So the one thing I would say about, so that's great, and I'm not going to discourage you from doing that. The one thing I would say that you're missing out on is you're not interacting with the musicians. So I found that as a drummer, like I could play along with stuff and I'd be like, oh yeah, cool, I know this. But my drumming wasn't influencing the other decisions. So if I'm guiding a song and I'm like, wait, am I doing the bridge or am I doing a double chorus here? And sometimes if you hesitate or do something, it makes the other musicians react because that's what we're all doing. So I think like knowing these songs and playing along with recording, playing along with live is great. But like, what if you're on a gig and somebody on the band doesn't know the song? Do you go with them or do you dig your heels into the ground? Likewise, what if you don't know the song? Are you going to just try to be passive, or are you going to just be very, I'm going to try to play something, and if it's a mistake, it's going to be a big mistake? That's, that's, you can't get that unless you're like actually on a gig. But yeah, Lowdown, that's a great way. Dan, getting your church to Brown Me acoustic kit try out. So I would say, like, if you're doing that, Dan, you could always like do things like big fat snare drum dampeners. You could always, like, a Zildjian has low volume cymbals. I would say be better safe than sorry, err on the side of caution. But also for all musicians, regardless of the instrument you're playing, learn how to play soft, extremely soft, learn how to play extremely slow. Like, and lock it in and make it feel good. Anybody can like play loud and fast, anybody can turn up and feel good, but if you can like really cook at low volume, it's a hard thing to do and it's not the sexiest thing to practice and work on, but it can keep you working. And if you can really control something at a lower volume, it's much better to it's much easier to bring it up. Yeah, electronic drums. Yeah, Adam, I've had that experience with a hi-hat as well, and that's why I say stomp, clap. You have to prepare for the hi-hat not to work, and that's an unfortunate reality. But I found that like doing stomp and clap and not doing the ghost notes or the extra accoutrement, shall we say, just doing clap, simplify it. That's what makes it work. Yeah. So when I am just about out of time here. God, we got a couple more questions. So I'll definitely answer these questions. I'm going to try to wrap it up here soon, but if you have questions, please answer them. I mean, please ask them because I want to answer as many questions as possible. So someone says, how do you deal with playing gigs or playing songs you don't like? It's all part of the business. And I'm not going to say that, like, I always enjoy playing songs I don't like or music I don't like, but I would say this, really know where you're going in your career, like know what you want to do, be intentional with it, and then frame everything around that. So if you just want to be like a metal drummer and you don't want to do anything else and that's your ultimate goal, maybe just play metal, maybe just focus on that. Instead of like spending all his time on energy on country. So my whole attitude is I'm in the music capital of the world. I'm making a living playing music, and my goals are I want to kind of maybe like buy a studio, kind of have my own industry where like, okay, I am making money off of my own creative projects while also being a successful side artist or side musician, like supporting original artists. So I think am I playing this gig? Is it going to serve either of these purposes? Is it going to help me meet people in a certain venue? Is it going to give me money? Am I going to be able to generate content off of this? If it's just something that I'm doing just to keep my wheels spinning and I don't like the music, it's not worth it for me. But I always try to think of, okay, what can I gain from this situation? And I've been in situations where I'm like, you know what? I'm established enough where I don't need to be playing at this time with these people necessarily, or this music is like, it's just not me. But align it all around your goals. That's what I would say. So Keith says, what do you bring to a gig where there's a house kit? Cymbals, hardware, and how do you deal with a house kit that has been messed with 50 other drummers before you get there? That's a great question, Keith. So every place is going to be a little bit different, but I would say always bring your breakables. Breakables means, at the very least, cymbals, snare, kick pedal, throne, perhaps. And so how do I deal with a house kit that has been messed with 50 drummers before you get there? You just do it by lots of experience and realize that when you're sitting down at a kit, you're not always going to be at 100%. There's going to be some kind of variable you have to contend with. Maybe the drums are kind of out of tune. Maybe it's in a weird angle and you have to fuss with things. Maybe the sound isn't right. Maybe it just feels awkward. But like, in knowing that going in, always think, all right, let's simplify. What can I do that I know I can pull off no problem, that I'm not going to crash and burn while I get my bearings? So sometimes simplify a groove, simplify playing. Same goes with like guitarists or bassists. I would say, like, find a zone where you're at about 70 to 75% of your playing ability capacity. Don't try to reach for anything. Don't try to make anything slick. Just make it really simple and like be totally rock solid. So like, sometimes I'll just like play like kick and snare and nothing else for like the first song. And just kind of get a feel for things, or like really dial things in. Keep it really simple. That's what I suggest. And so someone says, what are rehearsals like for gigging professionally? Do you gig with people you rehearse with, or is it more of a show up to the show, read the charts, and hope for the best? Yes and yes. Every situation is going to be different. So when I'm playing on Broadway, I don't think I've ever rehearsed for a gig on Broadway. You just have to know showing up, and you have to know this major list of songs. Dan just bought a packet of those charts for me. I think I have it early in the chat if you want to see that. Those are songs that are a good place to start. I think there's about like 4,000 different charts in that file. But so if I'm playing with an original artist, that depends. Sometimes like I just have to know the stuff and show up. Sometimes you rehearse. I say be prepared for both. I'm always over prepared for everything. I prepare for every gig like it's the Super Bowl, like it is the most important thing in my life. And you know what? That can be exhausting sometimes. When you're first doing it, starting out, it can be like, it's fun. But I found that being over prepared is really helpful, but it's also exhausting. But I've also noticed that it has never worked against me. If I know things inside and out, people will like recognize that. And that's one of the things that keeps you working, like not being lazy about those. But also being fluid, because sometimes they're gonna be like, oh, we want to play this in a little bit different way, or sometimes there's another musician there that doesn't know the material as much as you. And that's happened to me before. When I was younger, when people did that, I would get upset and offended, and I would call them out on it. I'm like, listen, I spent my whole life working on my craft. I take this seriously. We are hired to do a job here. Like, why should I take my job seriously and you don't? There's people coming, paying money to see us play music. It's like a great honor. And when you show up and you don't care, you're disrespecting yourself, you're disrespecting the other musicians, you're disrespecting the audience who's giving you their money and free time to hear you play. And I still believe that in a certain regard, but I also give people a lot of grace, because maybe someone is new at this and they're just figuring out. Maybe they never learned. And also, like, calling someone out does nothing to make the gig better, does nothing to have you win friends, has nothing to build up your name. I always just worry about my thing, and I try to lead by example. Whereas when I was younger, I would try to call somebody out if they weren't on top of their stuff, which, yeah, that didn't work out for me so much at that time. But if there's any other questions, you can ask it now. Otherwise, I'm going to hop off. I need to get some rest. I've had quite a crazy week. Crazy week coming up. I think I'm going to be next weekend. I think I'll be in southeast Georgia. I think I'll be playing in Savannah. I have to check my schedule. I have a couple videos coming out this week. Some interview stuff. A couple things talking about trolls. How I love trolls, seriously. But also, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, aaronaptermusic@gmail.com. I've been kind of slow on replying to messages lately just because I've been playing nonstop and I'm just really drawn out. And that's not to complain at all, but to let people know that, like, yeah, this is, I think doing social media and doing things like YouTube and Instagram, it's great. I always try to like remember that it is like I'm doing music and I'm showcasing that through YouTube and Instagram. I'm not doing Instagram and YouTube and just trying to fill it with music. That's not my job. My job is to be a musician. Yeah, and I sincerely appreciate people watching as well and people asking questions. So I'll leave you with this. I don't like doing this can sometimes be very hard for me when I'm like tired and exhausted like I am right now. But it's also very rewarding, fulfilling because I do this channel. My guiding principle for this channel is what's the advice I would have given myself when I was younger? What would I say to it's basically like a letter to a younger version of myself. And because this stuff, a lot of these things that I'm talking about were never taught to me. And if they were taught to me, my career would be in a much better place. And so I want to give that to other people. And hopefully this will benefit some of you, and then hopefully you can pass this on to other people. But yeah, that's all I have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. I think I'll probably have a video coming out in a day or two. And yeah, keep your eyes peeled. Thank you for watching. Be kind to everyone, and have a great day.